Hi, welcome to Actual Spinster. My name is Anna Marie, and today I'm going to do a review of Patchwork, a graphic biography of Jane Austen by Kate Evans. This book was sent to me by Verso, but these are all my own thoughts. I asked for them to send it to me, and they did. So firstly, one of the reasons why I was intrigued to check this out, aside from the fact that I am interested in Jane Austen and I do really love her work, and I think she was a really interesting and innovative novel writer, but also because I have read this book by Kate Evans, which is Red Rosa, which is a graphic biography of Rosa Luxemburg. And so I was really intrigued that someone who was really engaging with Rosa Luxemburg, this very seminal leftist thinker, would produce a biography about Jane Austen, who, on the kind of surface of things, in reality kind of is pretty different from Rosa Luxemburg for lots of reasons. But that really intrigued me. And with Red Rosa, it is a black and white biography, but I did quite enjoy the style of drawing. Yeah, I just thought that was really intriguing. And the thing with the Rosa Luxemburg biography is that there's a lot of notes. It's a very researched, citated, that's not a word, but it has lots of citations and references, which I think is really good, and also just a really important kind of practical aspect, especially if you are telling something as a graphic biography, because you don't have as much space to reference things directly. So having those notes is reassuring, I guess, in that sense. So yeah, I was just really intrigued to check this out. And I think it has a subtitle that is The Threads of Empire, but then it's not here. But I think I saw it referred like that. It's so creaky. In somewhere else. So that also was what really intrigued me to check it out. And then finally, the other thing that just made me be I really need to check this out is because of this beautiful the front pages. I just think this is stunning. I love this so much. I love how it's about the creation of this piece of art, this textile, and then also we get to see the shadow of the hands making it. I just love that. I think that's so gorgeous. And this is a quilt that the Austen women worked on together, and it was a patchwork coverlet. And this kind of motif and the idea of this kind of quilt is spread throughout the graphic biography. Unlike with Red Rosa, this is all colour as well, so that was really, really nice. And some of it is just absolutely stunning. It is really a stunning work. I would really recommend it. I guess I have a few things I want to kind of talk about. One of them is about kind of the Austen family biography aspect, or at least one of them is. So I guess I'll start there, which is I thought it was really excellent that Kate Evans kind of brought attention to this particular gap in the kind of narrative, which is about one of Jane Austen's many siblings, George. I think he was one of her elder brothers, and he is sort of missing in a way from all of these family narratives, because he was disabled in some way. And the way that this biography explores some of that, I thought was really fantastic, and I really appreciated, because I think it's very easy to kind of reinscribe the erasure of disabled people, disabled children from these kinds of narratives, precisely because you're relying on the sources and the people who did that first kind of writing out, and instead of kind of critically engaging with that gap, people just kind of accept it as just something that happened, as opposed to this, which really draws attention to it, with pages like this. So this says, there is someone missing from the picture, somebody cut from the frame. A little boy, George, 9 years Jane's senior. He has fits, he starts, he stumbles, he blushes easily. His ears are a little too large, and his face is a little too long. Long after it is expected, his speech fails to come. Snippets. What is George's disability? What is his crime? He is sent away to a farm 10 miles off, a whole life sentence. Is he ever allowed home? Does Jane ever see him? Jane can talk with her fingers. Was this with her brother? George's story remains untold. He cannot speak. He has no voice. And, of course, if you check the notes of this page, it also adds even more, interesting context, and also says that, some of the language that was used here was, purposeful as a way to demonstrate the, ableist kind of conceptualization of George at all. Yeah, I just thought that was really, really interesting and really fantastic as a way to talk about Jane Austen's biography in like a newer way, and I just appreciated it. I think it's a really principled way to do that, and I think those kinds of principles of like not leaving things out of the historical record, or like refusing to engage with them because they're like difficult, is something that like predominates through the rest of the book as well, because of how it engages with, I will say, I just love this page. Like it has all of these novels that came before Jane Austen. So it has Orinoco by Aphra Behn, The Female Quixote, is that how you say that? The New Atlantis, although I don't actually know that one. The History of Miss Betsy Thoughtless. Okay, I can read, I promise. Evelina by Fanny Burney, although that should say Frances Burney, I will say. Sir Eldred of the Bower by Hannah More. Melanie Mahal by Sarah Scott. That's actually on my bookshelf. Oh, where is it? Oh, it's in a pile over here. Cecilia by Frances Burney. A Vindication of the Rights of Woman by Mary Wollstonecraft. And Castle Rackrent by Maria Edgeworth. So you got a reading list right there. Okay, but yes, so the other thing that I really wanted to draw attention to was we get kind of an insight into her life up into a particular point in the first section, and then we have this sort of interlude, which is sort of, yeah, I guess it's like given a kind of introduction via this moment of Jane embroidering this muslin shawl that she's making, which is really beautiful. And then it kind of does this sort of stop that, again, through the kind of idea of patchwork and that patchwork coverlet that they're working on with all of those different parts of fabrics, is patching in some other information and some other kinds of knowledge or textures in the life of this woman. And so it starts by going through the different fabrics. So this is about muslin. One of the things that I think stays with you after reading a book like this is that you can't return to like Jane Austen's novels without some kind of change perspective on some of the things that she says. So for example, there's this famous quote in Northanger Abbey with Henry Tilney, because he knows like a good muslin and he knows like the price of muslin, and they talk about getting a really good price for really good muslin, and that becomes like deeply haunting in the context of the like extreme exploitation of these textile workers. So like this is about the spinning of muslin. Sorry, when I said she was spinning muslin, I mean like she's spinning cotton, but it's like for the production of muslin. Sorry. And like the level of skill here is just crazy. I mean, like this kind of muslin production is not something that has been able to be recreated. It was so fine and so delicate and just so like incredible. And then we go through the process more, where this is this is where the muslin is being woven. Then we have a British East India Company like agent shortchanging, to say the least, this particular worker for the amount of textile work that he is making, which, you know, all of this kind of together ultimately leads to like the eradication of this kind of muslin production, and there's all sorts of like horrible economic, as well as there's also like environmental consequences too. So yeah, really haunting. I mean, these pages are very kind of distinct from the rest of the, I mean, maybe not very, but like quite distinct from the rest of the biography. And yeah, it keeps going through. It also talks about the chintz production as well, and the incredible wealth that British people got from textile production. And then it also talks about the linen production in Ireland, and the repression of like uprising there, and also the exploitation of children in like cotton mills, as well as the like slave labor, the enslaved people who were picking cotton in America too. So I'm not sure if you could, but I hope you can get like a sense of that as this really kind of like meaty intervention into just like smoothing away the reality of that. It's kind of hard to keep track, I will say, because Jane Austen has a lot of brothers, and also then a lot of the heroes of her books are called similar or the same names as them, so it gets a little confusing. But there's definitely some of her brothers who are part of imperial projects in a way that feels very uncomfortable, especially because she like ultimately sort of lived off of her family at different points in her life. I think Jane Austen was an abolitionist, even if I don't think she was particularly stringent about it. But I think that the point here is kind of like, you can't separate her from the economic system inside of which she is, especially when she's not actively making a lot of like outward decisions not to participate in the exploitation of like Indian workers for their muslin, and also living off of like some of her brothers whose money I think does come from or is in some way implicated in these systems of trade and exploitation that are highly unethical, to say the least. At the beginning of this, there is this kind of really interesting way that like Jane Austen's class position and kind of her own awareness of her class is like explored too, which I sort of did expect coming from the author of Red Rosa, which was about her kind of babyhood, basically, of like when she was first born, she was like then given to this like couple in a small building living off of the field or farm or whatever that her family lived from, and then, you know, having this like experience of like 2 years maybe of like being brought up there basically, and then like going back to this big house with her mum, who was clearly very distant as like a parent figure. And then it like dramatizes her like running to greet this woman who was like looking after her, and kind of like not being allowed to do that, and it not being like proper to do that, and so learning from that like her class position, that she was like above the people who looked after her. I guess the other kind of major strand is of course like her literal work, like her literary output, and obviously that's part of her biography, and I kind of did wonder how much that was going to be engaged with directly in this. And because it is like a graphic narrative, you can kind of tell the stories, I'm trying to find one, you can tell the stories of the novels in a way that I feel like is sort of more fun than if you're reading like a just words book. So this is like about the story of Emma, for example, and I thought that was a good way to kind of bring them in. I think at times I felt like a little bit confused about some of the things that was being said, I guess, or like all of the different characters being introduced. I have read all of Jane Austen's novels, not her juvenilia, and I haven't read Lady Susan yet, but I do want to. This did make me want to like reread Sanditon because of how it's like framed as this like final kind of thing that like Jane was writing, and it was also during like her sickness and then her ultimate, well, I mean, she wasn't writing it during her death. But I hope you know what I mean. And so that was kind of interesting because it made me want to like revisit it, especially because it seems like some of the ideas in it are about like hypochondria, which obviously is really interesting for someone who is like deteriorating quite big wise in terms of their health, to like be thinking about. I guess maybe it's sort of wishful thinking in a way. Like the thing I wanted to say about kind of the engagement with the like specific textual works that Jane Austen does is like one of the things I thought was interesting, even if I don't think it's a particularly compelling, like I don't think, I'm not convinced by this as a literary interpretation of Mansfield Park, but I did think it was really fun that it was brought into this, and it's connected also to George again, and I don't know if I can find it, but basically Kate Evans kind of contends that Fanny Price is George, because of her like incredible sensitivity and just sort of like intensity of feeling and being, and like the difficulty of her kind of voice in that novel. And I thought that was really fascinating as a take on the novel. Kate Evans clearly doesn't really like Mansfield Park, which I do think is a kind of a shame. And I don't think it like works as a kind of extended interpretation, like I said, but I do, again, I think that's really nice how this is committed to thinking about disability and disabled people in life and in history and in like literary texts, and also as like inspirational parts of like texts, which I feel like is often something that is like not considered even possible, because it's like, why would you take inspiration from like being disabled, or like, you know, when like disability is like fascinating and it tells you so much about people, care, life, sensation, being. Like, I do just think this is like a really, really beautiful piece of work. I really hope I've been able to kind of show that and share that with you, because it's just really gorgeous. And I was really surprised that it was all in colour. Like I said, it's really lovely that it is, and I think it kind of has to be. The like interlude section that I was showing, like this section, I found out from watching an interview with Kate Evans that I will link in the description box, that she like embroidered it, and so it was quite like distinct and separate also within the process of making this biography, which again I thought was like really cool. Yeah, and it also, I mean, like, she's clearly done like an incredible amount of research and reading, and I just love the fact that you have all of these notes and you can really check her sources, you could go back and reread things. And I also think that, considering there is this kind of gap as well in like Jane Austen's own writing about her life because of Cassandra's like burning of her letters, which is obviously like a much discussed and wished for to not have happened thing in like Jane Austen scholarship. But I think it's also like this works with the letters that it has in a way that really like animates them, even if like, you know, maybe some of the juiciest stuff we'll never get to like read or know from what Jane was saying and writing. Yeah, one of the things I also loved is this final page, which is about what Jane Austen looks like. And I won't go majorly into it, but I really like it. It's also because I love this image of Jane. I just love it. She's so grumpy. I love that. Of all the Janes that we see, like, that's my favourite Jane, and that's my Jane Austen. I think that's kind of everything I had to say about this book. I would really love to know if you're interested in reading it, or if you have any other like interesting 250-year celebration things to check out, especially ones that are like weighted in the complexity of the like historical moment, or not even like the complexity, but like the reality, the literal reality of the historical moment. Yeah, I think reading this, having read some of the things I did in preparation for this video I did about Frankenstein, like the movie and the film, where I read about Mary Shelley's kind of views on abolition in a way that like surprised me, and also other novelists who are like Gothic novelists and their like sometimes literal direct relationship with like slave owning, in the case of Matthew Lewis, who wrote The Monk, which is like a kind of famous Gothic novel. And he like, I mean, he literally owned slaves. So like learning that like really, really direct link between like literary form and the slave trade has really made me think a lot more also just about it in general. And I think I should have known that about Matthew Lewis. Nobody had ever said that when they talked about his Gothic novels from what I was engaging with. So yeah, that really has made me think a lot more. And then I think this was a really great thing to then pick up after having those thoughts, because it also is thinking about it more in depth. I guess I'll put the cover back on. Yeah, okay, I think that's everything I had to say about this. Like I said, definitely let me know if you're interested in it or if you've picked it up already, and your thoughts. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. I will talk to you when I next talk to you. Bye!